Right, time to do an update and a clear out with the summer house. So for any new viewers or subscribers, I have a big summer house at the bottom of the garden, which I basically anything sort of half hardy or tender I will chuck in the summer house. It's not heated as such. It has a small heater in there which just keeps it above freezing, so it's not heated, but it does benefit from the greenhouse effect. When the sun's out, it does warm up in there. Right, so we're going to have a look at some of the plants I've pulled out and just neatened up. Look at some of the losses. This may turn into a fairly long video, but because there's a lot of plants in there and probably a lot to go through. But let's start with the bananas. So I just pulled these out. So literally they've been pulled out the ground last autumn, potted up in a dry mix, and I left all the leaves on. Well, I say all the leaves on, I cut through the dead leaves off, but I've left mainly the good live leaves. So this is what we're looking at with the bananas. So we've got Morellii, which are the red bananas. So again, this sort of kept bone dry, and to be fair, kept most of their leaves, these ones. Still looking quite good, so that's going to spring straight back into action and start growing as soon as conditions are right. Another one here, same sort of story, looking good. Couple of smaller ones, so these are Morellii as well, and really small trunks on these, so they wouldn't have dried stored, and I don't really dry store anyway. I find they get going a lot quicker if you just pot them up and keep them cool. So yeah, so we've got some smaller ones here and a really small one here, which is literally hardly any trunk on it, but yet it's still pushing. I did cut all the dead leaves off, but it's still live growth at the top. So all the Morellii, in fact I've got a couple of really, the two biggest ones over here, which I have just cut all the leaves off because they were starting to brown off and had a lot of green fly on them as well, so I wanted to cut them off. Just left the centre leaf just to get them going again. Right, so that's the Morellii. Let's have a look at the onset Haniba. So this is a small plant I purchased last year. Again, really too small to dry store, so we went with the tried and tested, same as the other insets. And again, we've got one pretty good leaf. We've got one leaf that's collapsed, so I'll cut that one off, and the centre leaf is coming. So the tender bananas have done okay. We've got here, we've got the lotus bananas. So this is, I did leave one in the ground as a tester, but I don't hold much hope for that as it's been such a cold winter. But these ones were backups. This is a little cheap one I got from B&M. I think I paid about $6.99, and it had three in the pot, so I divided them up. One has kept the leaf. The other two sort of died back, but really nice solid base. And this one, I can even see this is probably the smallest one, and it's got a little green tip on it, so that'll start growing when the time is right. To the hardier Musa Bajou, these are just pups I divided off the main plants as an insurance policy in case we had a bad winter. It's probably good practice to do that, and I'm glad I did. I probably lost a bit of height on the main Musa Bajou in the ground. Might have lost a foot or so, but I can tell by feeling that there's some new growth happening, so I'll cut them back to where the new growth is. But yeah, these are the little offshoots, so they're, like I say, just an insurance policy. So this is the pile of leaves and stuff I've removed from various plants in the summer house. So we'll look at these later. These are the This is a giant bird of paradise. It's just an old leaf which sort of dried up. It looked a bit untidy. So I've got all my Colocasias here, and there's a mixture of just standard Escalenta. We've got some Black Magic. What else we got? We've got 3 or 4 different types anyway. I don't remember them all off the top of my head, and a lot of them have died right back. And I just pulled the dead foliage off, and I'll get these in the polytunnel and get them going, because these are bone dry. So I'll give them a very damp. Just get them damp. I'm not going to soak them through. I'm just going to give them a little drop of water just to get them to spring back into life. Unusually, this one for some reason is kept on growing and pushing out a new leaf, but majority of them have died back. So I've just pulled the dead foliage off. Some of them have still got a little green tip on them, so they will come. This one is one of the black species, whether it's Black Magic or Arrowhead. We'll have to wait and see, but that's promising because that's a nice firm stem on that. And yeah, a lot of them, once you pull the foliage off carefully, you'll reveal green underneath if there's any dead foliage. So we'll get all these. In fact, this one was interesting because this is actually Mojito, which doesn't do well over winter in general. But again, there's a little green tip on there. And we've still got some with a couple of little green shoots on. So the idea is I've dried stored a load. I've done a video on that last week on the dried stored tubers, or edos if you like, the dried stored. And these are ones I've just kept as an experiment to see if they get going quicker with a bit of root already on them and a little bit of green, hopefully, like some of these. Right, what next? So we've done the bananas, done the Colocasias. Let's have a look at some of the palms. So this one is a queen palm. It is the mountain form, so supposedly a little bit hardier than a standard queen. And again, just in the summer house all winter, kept dry. When I say kept dry, you can see how dry that is. So we'll give them a little drop of water before I put them back in, because these aren't ready to come out yet. Still got danger of frosts up until probably April, possibly. This is a smaller one. This is the same, exactly the same palm again, queen palm, mountain form. Difference in height is due to one. First winter I had these, I've had these, this will be the 3rd winter. So the first winter I had this one indoors and kept it growing indoors, and that hence why it's double the height of this one. So just keeping it growing over winter just makes all the difference if you want to get size on your plants. But I haven't always got space to put stuff indoors, so this one may well be a candidate to go in the ground in the spring. But anyway, a real risky experiment for me, this one. This is a Becaria Phoenix Alfredii, which is the high plateau coconut from Madagascar, which, you know, lives at altitude and supposedly looks very similar to a coconut, but it's got a degree of hardiness to it. I don't think it's ever going to be a situation where it's planted outside unless you really fully protect it. But this has been encouraging because, again, this has seen not freezing, but it's seen, you know, all the cold snaps we've had, and it's just been above freezing and still looking good. So that's an experiment, and that's been an interesting one. That's still going strong. Let's just check what this is. Right, so Phoenix rupicola. This is a really nice, probably my favourite Phoenix species. Nice arching leaves. Not looking too special at the minute, but when that flush out in the spring and summer, that'll look really good. So this was another experiment. and to be fair, this was a sickly palm to start with. It didn't do well acclimatising to outdoor conditions in the summer, and this was a double. I don't know where the tag's gone for this. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. It's a Tetrasperma elegans, and like I say, it's a double. The main one spear pulled, so I've just pulled all that off. So even though it's rock solid, I think that one's dead. This one, smaller one's still alive, still got some green on it, and it's not spear pulling, so we'll see on that one. Well, that's a palm I weren't too fussed about, because if it's going to be more trouble than it's worth to acclimatise to outdoor conditions and throw a tantrum every time you do it, it's just, for me, it's not worth it. So that was just an experiment, and I know now I won't bother probably with any of the Tetraspermas anymore, because they can be a bit fussy. Alright, we've got a little Serenoa rippens, or saw palmetto. So this is one I dug out from the front garden last year. So obviously no palm likes root disturbance. So again, all these palms and everything I'm going through have spent the whole winter in the summer house. And this was, when I bought this, supposed to be the silver form, but it's not looking very silvery. It looked more like the green form. So this has got multiple growing points all the way around it, so we can see there's about 5 growing points on that, and got some new growth, so hopefully when the weather warms up that'll get going again. Another palm that we dug out from the front garden, which is not looking so good, the Triphanix campestris. After the winter before this one, the main part died, so again this is more of a dry lichen palm, so that is that suffered with the damp winters. But there's a offshoot here. In fact, there's a couple of little offshoots, which this one's got a bit of green in it, and this little one down here, I don't know if we can see it, is looking really nice, so hopefully that'll start growing. Put all this energy into that one. Right, so this is just the stuff I've pulled out to be able to manoeuvre inside the summer house. So let's go in and see what we've got. So this was the where all the bananas were, this side. We've got some more palms here as well, obviously. We'll quickly go through them for you. So we've got the Phoenix sylvestris, looking sort of quite stocky and compact, but it's growing. We have a Phoenix reclinata, which is still got some strap leaves on it, but it's starting to go pinnate. So that's doing okay. And we also have a Phoenix collis, which is the trunkless Phoenix, so like a dwarf Phoenix. It's supposed to be quite hardy, so these are all ones at some point will go out in the garden and stay out and see what happens. Behind these, obviously, we've got a Phoenix robellini, which is a double. Starting to get a bit of trunk on some of them. Always a nice solid palm. Make good house plants over winter, but again they'll tolerate just being kept frost free and dry, you know, in a shed, summer house, greenhouse, whatever. They'll do okay over winter. We've got a small Livingstone chinensis. This is one I dug out of the centre bed to replace with sable palmetto, no, a dwarf palmetto, or sable minor. So I dug this one out because that sort of struggled over winter. That always loses a couple of leaves, and it takes all summer to grow the leaves back, so you never really gain anything. It's just taking too much damage over winter to fully recover again before the next growing season. Right, what else have we got? Right, so right at the back here, it'll be a bit awkward getting in here. Let's just move this out of the way. that's a little chinensis, and nice fronds on them. I do like the chinensis. Right, we've got a couple more Livingstonas here. So we've got a Livingstona australis, which is this one here, which I'm waggling about. And we've got a Livingstona decora. Again, experimental palms for the UK. When they get a bit more size on them, they will be going out and tested in the ground at some point, maybe in a year or two when they've got a bit more size on them. Right, so coming over here, these are all the sort of house plant experiments. So stuff I didn't have, you know, stuff that was outside for summer, and I didn't have room to bring them back indoors for winter. So we've got a lot of Bromeliads here, and again kept on the dry side. I don't mind the cool temperatures, they're all absolutely fine. The shell ginger has totally shriveled up, but it's still got some green in it, so I'm hoping once the temperatures warm up that'll pick up, because really are quite nice leaves on them once they open up and look good. We've got a sort of standard Schefflera plant, which will always do really well in the summer outside, and takes the cool temperatures but not a frost, so that's just kept in here. Anyway, so another sort of really experimental one was the fishtail palm. So we have got a little bit of brown spotting on it, but reminder that this is literally probably only kept a couple of degrees above freezing, if that, and again kept on the dry side, and I think that'll do well once it gets back out in some sun, and that'll put on some more growth. So that's another one that's, I'm going to say, is a success for overwintering cold and dry. Right, so behind all that, I don't know if we can see in the back, we've got some Alocasias which have all kept their leaves. I think they're Adoras and Macrorrhiza. In fact, we've got a big Macrorrhiza there which has still kept all its leaves. The Petora collapsed, but it's just a stem there in that grey pot, so that's collapsed, but and there's no one behind it that's also collapsed, but the rhizome, the tuber is still firm, so that will come back once temperatures warm up and that gets a bit of water. Right, so let's speed things up, because I knew it was going to take a while to go through all these. We've got the Kentia palms at the back there, so we've got 4 there which go outside in the borders over summer. They've done absolutely fine over winter. Again, as long as they don't hit a frost, they seem to be fine with the cold temperatures. In fact, they're even still pushing a spear over winter, so they've done really well. We've got a Chamaedorea metallica, which got horribly sunburnt, so some of the lower leaves have actually got white patches on them where they got sunburnt, but over winter again it's looking really good. Nice deep green leaves, and I guess once it gets a bit more light when summer's here, they'll go a silvery sheen to them, hence the Metallica name. A lot of bird of paradise, so we've got the giant bird of paradise at the back here. We've got 3 of those, biggest being that, and the leaf on that is probably 3.5 foot, just one leaf, so that they get big, and is starting to kick out loads of pups as well, so they're waiting to get outside. And we've got a couple of smaller giant bird of paradise as well, which also will go outside as soon as we pass that frost danger point. To standard bird of paradise, which is this one, which is, some of the leaves on these are getting quite big now, and over winter we know you get the cooler patch and you encourage the flowering, so we've got a couple of flower spikes coming on that, so we'll have some nice flowers come early summer. They take a while to get going, the flowers, especially obviously with the basically 5 months of cold. That sort of encourage them to send up a flower bloom, but then once it warms up, that will encourage it to actually come into life and flower for you. So I had one flower off this bird of paradise last year, which is the standard, and this one is the gold form. So it's like golden flower bird of paradise, which is also, we can see there, sending up a flower spike. Right, so we're getting there. We've got a little succulent planter here, really shallow one, which I'm going to have to break down this year because I planted this up a couple of years ago and the plants have started to sort of outgrow it. So we've got like a variegated jade plant there. We've got a small unnamed agave, another cutting of an agave, which I can't remember what type it is. It's not Americana or something else. Some standard Apontia cacti, and then we've got the Cape Aloe. So this is always my backup one. I had several of these. I sort of moved some on over the years, and I've got one big one which is still in the arid bed, which looks like it survived winter, surprisingly. And this was my backup one, so that's going to need repotting this year. So well, everything's going to need repotting in that. Right, so we've got the philodendron here, which is looking, I'm going to have to get this outside and give it a spray down because it's got loads of green fly on it. So this is like the split leaf tree philodendron. It's looking very rough this time of year, but I know as soon as I get that outside, that's going to take off and does really well outside in the summer. Oranga angleri, the sugar palms. This is another one which I'm going to experiment with outside at some point, maybe put it in spring, and we'll give that some winter protection. But this is quite a nice tropical looking palm, and really nice sort of silver side to the back of the leaves, and we can see it's almost like a fishtail palm leaf at the moment, but that does sort of separate finer than that. It looks really tropical once it gets some size on there. So that's going to be one which is again going to be an experiment outside, but that's done the last couple of winters in here, you know, cold, prolonged, dark, and yet still, I wouldn't say looking perfect or looking probably not even good, because we've got some yellow streaks, so it's deficient, so it needs more light, and it's obviously quite dry as well. But that's going to be a one to go out maybe in the spring. Right, so let's conclude with this, which is the Agave attenuata, or foxtail agave. This is one of my favourite agaves. Really sort of silvery, soft, fleshy leaves on this. You know, you can't hurt yourself on this. If you want an agave where you're going to be walking past it, this is the one. They're not hardy, so that is the problem, but you can have them as a potted specimen, either sink them in the ground or just have them in a nice pot, and yeah, they'll really nice, like I say, soft, so you can't hurt yourself on them, you can't spike yourself on them. They're not sharp at all. Nice colour, and this one is starting to get a bit of a trunk on it, so the plan is, we can see we've got a couple of nice little ones coming at the bottom, and probably some more coming as well. So I'm gonna cut this off here and stick that in a pot, and that will regrow roots. So I'll have a nice big one separate, because I don't think they look quite so nice when they've got the trunk on them. I prefer them to be at ground level. Not right at ground level, obviously, because that's going to probably rot off the foliage. So we'll leave a couple of inches, maybe the base there, and the rest will be put in the ground, and that should root nicely and take off again. This is like a lot of agaves, are pretty tough. They don't need any roots. You can cut them as long as they've got a bit of stem on there. They'll regrow the roots and hopefully grow away nicely. So that'll leave me with a big pot with a stump and some little ones. But the root system in the pot, and it is extensive because the roots actually come out and go all around the pot, because I keep this in a pot which is already sunken in the ground. So all I do each spring is just pick up the pot it's in and put it in the pot which is in the ground, and job done. it's nice and clean, and you can just pull it in and out as you need it. But yeah, the point is we've got a big root system in here, so without the big mother plant on the top there, these little ones should really take off. And I'd like to propagate more of these because these are quite hard to get hold of in the UK and can be quite pricey. So yeah, I'd like to do more for my own personal collection. Right, so I think we're about there. So again, no special treatment in here. We've got a small fan heater here. The fan's going all the time, so the air's moving. It is a 2 kilowatt, but I've got it on set on 1 kilowatt and pretty much at the minimum, so it'll only kick in heat wise when it gets close to freezing, and that'll just stop it from freezing in here, and you know, that seems to work. Right, so I think I've covered all the bases. Again, this, for any newbies, it's a standard sort of summer house. I have insulated it, the side walls and the back walls are insulated from the outside with a inch thick foam and then pallet wood over that. I have put a sun light in all along the roof, which is just acrylic, and then I bubble wrap that as well, so it lets more light in. I've put a old shower curtain at the back to reflect a bit of light, and all the windows and doors at the front have got bubble wrap on them as well, so that's, I wouldn't say it's highly insulated, but it's insulated enough so it don't really get too much of a draft, and the sun, when it warms up, it does sort of hold a bit of heat. Right, so I think we're done. So now I've got to very carefully give all these palms a little bit of water. I might even give the bananas a little drop as well. To keep it real, I have got some pots here, so we'll conclude at this point with these pots, which are some plants that didn't make it or possibly won't make it. Well, I haven't ruled them out yet, but I'll put these to one side. So these were mostly house plants which I weren't expecting to make it in the summer house over winter, but again, unless you try, you don't know. So we've got a couple of crotons, which normally the leaves drop off, but the leaves haven't dropped off. They still seem solid on there, but they obviously have dried up and died, so I don't know whether these will come back or not. I wouldn't hold my breath, but I'm not going to chuck them out just yet either. I will give them a drop of water and put them back in the summer house. To be honest, I've got a few plants here which because I'm lazy and don't label things, I don't even know what they are, but I know they'd rotted off. So I think this one might have been an allocation. Looking at the soil, that was a bit damp, so that probably did totally rot out. This one, this is an allocation again, that's totally firm. So the point is, you do these experiments, you're going to lose some plants, and that was quite an extreme winter we've had so far. And you know, as you build a collection of plants, you tend to have your favourites. You tend to buy more plants that you want, and some of the older ones that you've got, you know, you're not quite so keen on or fond of. So these are all plants that I weren't too concerned. If I was concerned, I'd have looked after them properly and catered for them, but there you go. Right, so that is what's been overwintered in the summer house, and all in all, pretty much a success story, I'd say. And I apologise if people don't like mess and untidiness, but this is the reality of gardening, especially this time of year when you're pulling things about and moving stuff. There's going to be junk everywhere. So if you don't like that, then I apologise, but that's the way it is. That is reality. Right, anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching.